Hello, hi. Welcome to the third edition of Elevate, where we talk everything robotics, drone tech, and everything happening in the deep tech space. Today we have Pallavi Saha with us. She's the founder of RigBetel Labs, and they are doing some really cool things in the robotics space. And we also have Aditya with us, founder and CEO of Vyom. So really looking forward to the conversation, Pallavi. Let's get this started.
Sure thing.
Hi, Pallavi. Welcome
Hi.
to Elevate and very happy to have you here.
Likewise.
Let's start with RigBetel. What does RigBetel Labs do?
hmm primarily, RigBeater Labs is a solutions-oriented company. So we work around solutions and platforms and anything that has to do with the word autonomous robotics. That's the broader perspective of space that we come into. What does our day-to-day job look like? So our ideal, cycle of things or cycle of work is we speak to a customer, we understand their problem statement, get to a decision that do they really, need a solution that does not exist in the market and that needs to be made from scratch. If that's the case, that is the only space where we get involved into, and then work along with them for the given timeline to get through the solution that needs their, again, autonomous robotics needs. So yeah.
It's very interesting, but let me actually just start from the beginning, right?
Mhm.
Who are the founders? How did you guys meet? How did it all start?
So we're a three co-founder team. We're batchmates from undergrad. So we know each other for about 10 years now. We started our undergrad in 2016 together. So again, both of them are mechatronics grads. I'm an IT student. And we met through, college clubs and stuff like that. So all three of us, being the way we are, we've hardly spent a lot of time in lectures, let's just say. I won't say any because, if any of our professors are listening, they'd hold us to it. So maintaining the decorum of the university, we still skipped a lot of classes and, went around building robots, so just attending competitions, hackathons, and, moving from one IIT to another, getting through one tech fest to another. That's how, our initial years of knowing each other have been. And post that, once we graduated in 2020, is when we started the company together.
That's very interesting. And you just talked about that you do solutions and you look at new problems that have not been solved before. Was it always like this, or what was the original idea, and how did it evolve to what it is now?
Honestly, initially, RigBeater Labs was nothing robotics. At least the point when we decided that we'd, incorporate a company and we'd move ahead with all of this. Because although we did a lot of, building robots and working around robots during the undergrad setup, but never really had that one moonshot idea. All of us have our own visions of, where we want to see robots. So one of our, team members who's one of the founding members, he has a thing that whenever, maybe, when he's 80 years old, but he still wants to see robots in space. One of my co-founders has a very clear idea that, okay, I want robots to be like laptops today that every second person's carrying. We'd want robots to be like that. So although we had that vision or we had that idea of robots in our head, we did not really start the company from a robot standpoint. We actually wanted to start as a SaaS platform. We'd made the app and all of it. But in a nutshell, the app was meant to enhance offline learning experience for undergrad students in their universities. And the point when we were supposed to launch the app is when COVID happened. So offline as a word kind of vanished from a lot of our dictionaries for a good amount of time. And that's when we sort of, at the lack of options, okay, what do we do? So let's go back to what we've done before and what we know of and what we understand, and that's where robotics kind of came in accidentally and then evolved naturally. Is that what I'd call it?
Wow, major 180-degree pivot. Very interesting. So you've already mentioned COVID, right? What were the other challenges, and what are the challenges of having a robotics company in India, right? How did you go about that?
I think we'd be one of the few people who'd say COVID wasn't the best or the worst part of their lives. Let's just say it wasn't the worst parts of our life because we did not have a benchmark of, okay, look, this is what running a company before COVID was, and then now after COVID is. Because I know a lot of my friends from the e-com space or the D2C space who've seen business transform almost 360 degrees after COVID. But we just started within it. I think that's where we built around that. So from a COVID standpoint, I don't think apart from the fact that we pivoted from a SaaS platform to robotics, I don't think COVID did us any bad. And plus, it kind of became a positive note wherein, because of the entire lockdown and manpower shortage and everything, people kind of realized the importance of smart automation much faster than what we would have had to push. So automation has always been there, especially in the Indian robotics landscape. If we have to speak, automation has always been there because of the automobile players, right? And we've had massive manufacturing setups, and especially being in Pune, we've seen that in and around almost every corner of things. And even then, the concept of robotics, especially from our definition versus what the industry uses or was using, was very different, right? So that whole shift of things happened much faster, much better because of COVID. Although our initial set of customers were all based in the US, but we'd always had conversations going on with Indian customers, Indian landscape, and kind of realized that rest apart, I think from a general notion of is running a startup in India the easiest thing to do in life, I think all of us would agree no. Right. So, for that matter, running a startup in itself is a mountain. And then, when you come to India, it probably becomes the Kanchenjunga or something on those lines. Right. So, yeah, it has its own baseline challenges altogether.
Yeah, but like and because we have also we are now in this space, right? And one thing that not enough people talk about is just how different and harder recruitment is in robotics compared to various other fields or startups that we see. Uh, Good thing that you guys already had the robotics experience, but how was that?
No, I think exactly building on that we within ourselves we were a complete team for a good amount of time.
Oh, wow.
And that is sort of something that gave us that initial push that we did not have to bang our heads around to find people who could understand stuff. So although I have always been the software setup within robots, right? So I've not really had my hands dirty every now and then with trying to get through a set of nuts and bolts with the robot. But at the same time, within the three of us, we had things distributed very well. And that kind of complemented each other. Nobody was interfering with each other's territories, and we were just in a very calm, composed space of mind. So I think for the first 1.5 year of running the company, we did not really hire anybody, not even an intern. Amongst the three of us, we just running the whole show. But post that, when we did realize that, okay, if now we don't hire people, either we're not going to scale up from the certain amount of money that we're making every month, or maybe a few months more and we'll just burn out altogether, because this is the first job as such that we've gotten ourselves into. We do not have a benchmark of how much should you not work and how much should you work. And in today's internet terminology, if we'd call it what is work life balance, we did not know that, because we did not have another life apart from work, let alone speak of balance in there, right? So on those lines, when we got to think of it that, okay, now if we want to recruit people, what kind of people are we going to recruit? Or, we never really, even till date, I think apart from, an exception or two here and there, we've never really made a job description and then floated around the internet to gather candidates and do stuff like that to try and hire. But we realized very early on that because ROS as a skill, so robot operating system as a skill, was something that we picked up very early on, right? We knew for a fact that there are not a lot of people within the Indian landscape who know of how to work on it. And then folks who knew were already either building their own company or working as a freelancer or had a very clear plan of moving for their masters abroad. So hiring somebody and then to work was a difficult space to be in. But again, we being we and our entire love towards why do people not know it, let's educate them. That is a knack that all of us have an innate knack within us, and that's one reason why we started something called the ROS mentorship program. So this was again derived from a lot of places that we'd learned stuff before, but a concept in itself was, okay, whatever we think we need, and then attach it with a baseline elements of what should somebody who wants to be a ROS developer know. We made a curriculum which ran for about 2 months. So 1 week, 2 weeks, sorry, not happening. If you have to learn it, you have to learn it the right way. And that entire 2 month stretch, we thought, okay, let's do it with a couple of people. Let's see how that goes. Because although we had hiring in the back of our heads, it was not always the motive that, okay, this is exactly only the reason why we're doing it. It was always that whole push of, okay, we need more people to know. Otherwise, we'd have to do the entire category creation, which is going to be a tough job. So then that whole saga behind mentorship program started. We thought, okay, we'll do 5-6 students in a batch. Do them live sessions and alternate days and do projects with them. So I had like a full-fledged setup plan that what we would have wanted of somebody of how to teach us ROS is how we do it. And I don't know how, but it just picked up very quickly. We'd initially intended we'd do 10 students in a month, start one batch every second week. And there was a point within 2 or 2.5 months of doing it that we were bound to start a new batch almost every midweek. So we're doing 2 batches in the same week at the peak of it. And then we thought, okay, look, this is going a little too much. Let's slow down. So that's when we sort of reduced the number of batches. But again, to cut short, I think I took a longer way route to the story. But if the first few people that we've hired came in from these programs. And we've had very random hirings at time. We've been doing, Discord sessions as a saga to these mentorship programs. That okay, let people know what these guys are building. And somebody there attended, had a very weird question that we were thinking, okay, what question is this? And spoke to that person, got into a random conversation, and ended up hiring him after a week's, conversation in it. So that way, I think the first couple of people who I would have called the core of the team this is how we hired them. And then even today, I think since now we've stopped doing that entire mentorship thing because of lack of time, we're again going back to the same point in things that okay, we're finding it difficult to hire good people. So yeah.
I love how you almost went back to your original idea of offline teaching and solve recruitment as part of it. That's great. but so also back to the other question of the choices that you made along the way, right? And there were a lot of choices there. I'm sure there still are a lot of choices, right? How did you go about them, right? Like so custom versus off the shelf, RAS versus selling, right? What are the choices you have made and why?
So I think a lot of choices, no, we did not realize that we're making a choice. It kind of happened on the way. And a lot of it came from the point of view that we never had a benchmark. I've seen this with a couple of folks in the industry who've, either built a product before, sold it, and now come to the robotics space, or have worked with corporates for a couple of years and then are now starting up. They have certain benchmarks, right? And given their experience, they know, okay, things work in a certain way, let's follow a pattern. For us, since we were building our own pattern, a lot of things happened naturally. But then now that I look back, okay, what we done in the last 2-3 years that we are now today at a decision like this, right? When we come at RAS versus selling, for us, given custom solutioning is built for the customer, for their exact problem statement, it may or may not suit another second customer in the industry. So that was one very clear reason of okay, why RAS cannot work. Because either I would have to get into a debt to build a solution from you and then get to 10 years to get to an ROI, or I simply remove RAS as a model, and I very actively choose to do that because being in a bootstrap setup, you just have a lot of constraints to how you can work around a solution. And even from the point of view of whether custom or off the shelf, when we started, we were always from, I think we, for the lack of a better word, I'll call jealousy took part in some ways where, okay, I could have built it. Why did you purchase that? And there have been a lot of instances where initial decisions like these came up because I think it had also to do from the point of view that we did not have a lot of people who wanted custom solutions made. So a lot of people that we were speaking to in an initial, year and a half of doing services came to us from the point of view that, there is this solution that exists in the market. I need this at probably half the price. Or I need it built in 2 weeks because getting it from China is going to cost me about 5 weeks. So there have been those patterns which always used to push us to the fact that, why can every robot that's being deployed not be custom, and why is there even an innate need of having a product-based robotics company? But those were child us, dumb 22-year-old us who used to think like that. Now we've evolved to this stage where we've realized that there have been so many people who are building products in the industry, and it takes an entire village to build one robot. Why would you want to get yourselves into a setup wherein the client requires probably two robots and does not have any out of the ordinary feature requirement as such?
Mm.
So I think our choices there evolved in the manner where we started to value our time, our effort, our thought process behind the engineering a bit more than what we used to do in the, let's say, first 6-8 months of doing services. And that's where now a lot of people we talk to, the first thing we do is, are you sure you need a custom solution? Because this is going to cost more.
Okay.
If you're not sure, we'll help you to, just scan through the number of products and the number of folks that we know of that are offering these as products. If they just don't suit you, then come back to us, we'll build it for you. Until then, until you are very sure in your mind that this is exactly why I need a custom solution, I may not get into the engineering of it.
You're turning away customers to other companies?
A lot of them. I think I turn away more customers than I acquire. So
It's a very interesting business model.
it feels sad to do that. A lot of times you feel that's loss of revenue, but then at the same time, it's just revenue and not profits. And then it keeps going back to that entire bootstrap story, right? That you need profit to come in the equation first before revenue comes.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Would love to know your thoughts on the robotics ecosystem. Kind of picking up on a few things, right? At least my hypothesis is that that playbook of what a robotics company is very, very varied and not well written for India specifically. My outside in perspective when I first came into the space was that actually people are a lot more friendlier versus a more established ecosystem where there's more competition. There seem to be more friends here, and as evidenced by you turning away your customers to your friends. Can you talk about the ecosystem and how it has evolved in the time that you've been here?
No, I think evolution in this ecosystem has been like a tangent graph, right? So it's nowhere on a linear curve. It's always on all different stages of happening. Now, knowing the industry for about close to 5 years, I've seen things change very drastically every 6 months. There are new players coming in. There are players who are exiting, not because the product was bad, but because they realize that maybe it's not the right time for the product, or it's just not a fit for the problem statement that they were looking at, and then probably build something different altogether. So even from an understanding point of view, as you said, right, it's more friends than foes. It's more friends than competition, because there are a couple of mutual understandings that every mature founder would have. Is firstly, there's a massive enough market for you and me both to coexist with the same exact product, right? Because you might be targeting XYZ and I may be targeting ABC, and we can still coexist at much bigger revenues than what we're doing today. So why to try and fight off each other? But even in that process of trying to talk with each other, you would always realize that you have a point different than them, and that makes a difference to the client. So it's not good or bad that your point is good and my point is bad. It's just slightly different because the customer need could be different. Because when you were doing your customer analysis, you spoke to 10 different people than what I spoke to, right? So that's one innate difference right there. Secondly, if a founder or if a founding team has made a good product, they know the amount of effort that's gone into it. And it's not as easy as scraping a web code and putting it into an editor and launching an app on Play Store. It takes a lot to especially build the hardware portion of it, then build a software that's compatible with it. So if today you and me start with the same hardware components, your thought process and my thought process could be very different, and we could end up making a slightly different robot. Right? So if there's somebody who's made it from scratch, they know it's not an easy process. I've had, folks coming in who've said that, you guys sell research platforms wherein you give these robots to universities, you give these robots to students to work with. What if there's somebody who bypasses the circle, comes in, sees through the entire thing, and just goes on and replicates it? And at times, out of the sheer confidence that I have in the product, I go ahead and say, okay, try it.
That's right.
Give it a try, because I'm not challenging you. I am encouraging you to go give it a try, so that the challenges that I might have faced, you're already going to face it if you don't come and talk to me.
Mhm.
And then you may end up making slightly different mistakes than what I did. And maybe both of us learn in the process if you realize early on to come and talk to me.
Very
If
true.
not, then the time that I have spent, let's say I've spent 2 years building that, you would spend 2 years building that, or let's say 1.5 year building that. In that 1.5 year, I would have gone to another stage altogether where that product is irrelevant for me.
Mhm.
Right. So, given that understanding, I still on a daily basis meet a lot of people who do not have that kind of maturity. Could be because they're slightly nascent to the system, or it's just how their thought process is. But I've been more than lucky enough to encounter a lot of people like these who've been very open, just come down to our office any day, go through the robot, see if there's something that you think you can derive from your learnings. Let's just sit and talk of what have you done, what are we doing, and let's see if we can help each other. And there's no transactional value involved here. So I think if this is the ecosystem that we're speaking of, I am glad to be a part of this ecosystem. On the flip side, I've seen how things work with the IT industry, right? They're very skeptical, they're very closed with every little thing that they do. And it's fair, because copying there or infringing things there is very simple. And the industry is at a very mature stage.
Right.
Robotics today is still at a very nascent stage. I don't think anybody should try making a playbook out of it too. This is how you build a robotics company in 10 steps. Sorry, you should just not do that today, because it's a very nascent stage to do it. And your 10 steps are never going to be enough for somebody who's trying to attempt a new problem statement.
Yeah.
So,
Would be great to get your thoughts on this recent, deep tech versus not deep tech debate. What has your experience been? Well, both on the funding as well as on the, regulation or government support side.
See, I think I am, that passively optimistic person. I do get into my own zones of pessimism every now and then, but I think the optimism always takes over it, and I try to find the logic behind why is that happening. There's always the second side of the story where you meet people who are just, by nature of it, crooked. I don't know what problems do they have with things altogether. They're just against deep tech, or they're like, you deep tech guys are just not making money and you're just burning money and all of that. You'd always find people like that.
I see.
But then at the same time, for folks who are doing, things for logical reasons and have their own, from a funding point of view, they have their LPs to answer. Deep tech is not going to give you returns in 10 months or, 10 years, 5 years, whatever the timeline is. Whereas D2C can just blow up one random day and great, you have 10x returns, right? So unless the LPs transform from a thought process that, okay, look, this is how deep tech could work, and this is how fundamentally changes need to be done in the process of funding, we're just not going to get there. And there are newer people who are investing money from that point of view, who've seen technology develop, because today LPs are usually folks who have made money the old way. For the lack of a better term, we'll call it make money the old way, either through IT services or through traditional businesses like textile or FMCG products and stuff like that. And for us to expect from them to understand the notion of deep tech is in an innate value wrong. Why? How could you expect somebody who's been into making detergents for their entire life now out of nowhere understand how LLMs work and why does it need GPUs that are so expensive? So they'd have their logic of their own. It's just that the group of people that are ready to invest into deep tech are small.
Right.
But then at the same time, funding seekers are also less compared to D2C, right? So the matchmaking is still difficult. It's difficult for the D2C guys also. Or if you're building the right product, if you're targeting the right market, which genuinely has a return for both you and the investor would, say yes. Although I've not gone into the funding process myself, so I may be, wrong in commenting on a certain set of things. But at the same time, with the kind of setups that I've been a part of, I've spoken to a lot of folks from the VC community and from the analysts community, and for the folks who, accept and reject pitch decks of which one's going ahead and which one's not. And when you ask them this exact question of, okay, why do you even reject somebody? And they're like, you can just see at it and tell that it's not going to make money in the long run. Or apart from the bare amount of money that I could get from an FD return, or in today's day from a Nifty return, it's not going to cross that. So, there's just no point for me to try and take a risk in it. So there are also people on those zones, right? So that becomes a complicated setup to even try and target. And with the entire this whole politicians giving statements on the lines of India should build deep tech and should not build D2C, it has both sides of it. India is building deep tech. Maybe they just don't know a lot of them. Right, because I think you and me, I would know less D2C founders, more deep tech founders.
Right.
Because we've been in that circle. But for them, when they look from a GDP point of view, deep tech is nowhere.
Right.
But deep tech as a term got coined in India probably a decade ago at max. How would you expect it to be a part of GDP where, agriculture that has been here for centuries is not that big of a part? So it's kind of slightly wrong to expect that. At the same time, we understand that whole, FOMO notion of China's doing this and US is doing that and Europe is doing this and where is India in all of it? A lot of Indians are working there. So we have to make it favorable enough for those Indians to stay here and work. Now, it happens sometimes, doesn't happen sometimes. It's very frustrating now when I'm sitting and talking to you, it's sounding all, merry-go-round and jolly easy for me to comment. But when it comes down to me making a choice of I wanted to hire somebody and, that person has decided to go move to the Germany for their masters, it frustrates me to all levels.
Right.
That, there's just so much changing. Why would you not want to stick to your own country for another 2 years? Give it some time, see if you're able to, make enough knowledge and money out of it. But then again, there's a lot of ifs and buts to it. How many are you going to try and solve? So it's not easy. At the same time, it's not the villain of the story, the way a lot of LinkedIn posts put it up, right? So
Yeah. So complete agreement. I think robotics is definitely a more nascent industry than some of the others. I also agreed with what you were saying, right? This is like an exponential curve. Then the way things are changing and how much they are changing and how short a time they are taking to change is just is fascinating to watch. So would be good to get your thoughts on really what has changed, even in the last year, right? Like so with AI, LLM, vibe coding, right? What are you seeing? What are these changes? And how do they affect robotics?
Very primarily, the change that we've seen is the understanding of the customer itself.
Okay.
Previously customers used to come in from the benchmark of, today I have 70 people working. I want to bring it down to 17. What can you do? They just did not have any other benchmark.
Right.
ROI even today stands at the topmost point of making a decision of robot or no robot. But now, given the kind of, news that's around or the amount of information that's around, customers are very much more aware of, okay, what are my options? Now, it also has a, slightly con side to it where everybody now wants an AI solution without realizing that is AI even a thing for them? Or are they just looking for something machine learning or some basic data science, or at a lot of times it's just if and else conditions run in an Excel sheet, right? But for them, it becomes, we need an AI based solution. But for solution providers like us, it works on both legs. The first set of time we dedicate with them to try and make them understand, look, this is not AI. You don't need AI. This is exactly what your problem is. This is what solves it. 80% of people will agree to it, understand, take their time, get their research done, but understand. But there'll always be that 20% like, no, we need AI. So either we'll skip that problem statement altogether, we'll skip that client altogether. Or if we end up doing it, we with a heavy heart will have to call those FNL statements AI. So, that whole shebang around AI has both sides to it. But from a solution provider standpoint, I think a lot of things have become easier for us. Access to things are much easier. Time to prototype has become even smaller than what it was before. Running simulations has become easier. With all the, dancing ifs around NVIDIA's products lines and their GPUs and their CPUs and their software stacks, there's a lot that is probably, not as useful as this been marketed. But at the same time, there's a bigger chunk that's much more useful if you know how to use it. So their entire, obsession about making GPU the smallest or the most power efficient, it makes sense because today robots are very power hungry. So if you can make them power efficient, your entire curve, right from the whole point of needing a smaller battery to sustainability and climate change, it just becomes a chain of thoughts. Right.
That's
So
right.
it has its pros and cons on both sides. I have seen more pros than cons, honestly. Met more people who've understood that this is not something that was invented last year. It's just now it has simpler terms to be spoken about. Initially, you used to speak all probabilistic regressions and statistical answers. Now you speak of LLMs. You call it AI in simple words, right? So yeah, it's worked out at least on a plus side for us.
Very interesting. And what about the robots themselves? There's, I mean, there used to be Boston Dynamics for decades, and now you have Unity, you have Tesla, you have humanoids all over the place. What is going on in robotics?
I think I've had the privilege to kind of try and work with all of these, robots, quadrupeds, humanoids, some in only simulation, some in real, some in, just concept. And honestly, from a quality standpoint, from a reliability standpoint, which is a very big check mark for robots altogether, right? When you see of somebody like Boston Dynamics who spent the last 10 years perfecting the last bit to the nail, you'll see the difference between a Unity robot and a Boston Dynamics robot. But then at the same time, for somebody who's trying to establish a proof of concept, getting to a Boston Dynamics spot is going to be very difficult. But then at the same time, the Unity robot is available with your next electronics vendor at a fairly okay price, right? So that just increases the access to market. Same goes for humanoids as well. You'd speak of humanoids from Tesla, you'd speak of Atlas, you'd speak of humanoids being made at a bulk rate in a lot of these Chinese companies. But then at the same time, it solves that access problem. So when you speak here, everybody's talking about humanoids. You would always have that natural thought that today, if I'm thinking of deploying robots for my problem statement, are humanoids a better choice? Right? Because they function like humans. So I am essentially looking to replace a human. Would a humanoid be a better choice than an AMR? If that's a question that you have to answer, probably 2 years ago, you would have had to build a humanoid, try it out, and then leave the thought. Or just for the effort of it, leave it and go for an AMR without realizing what would have been a better choice. But today you have that access. You have simulation tools, you have cheaper robots as well available who may not function at 100% efficiency, but you anyways had to just establish a proof of concept. So are these robots production ready who are solving the efficiency problem, which is the crux of robotics? Some are, some are not. But the percentage is very negligible, in my view. But then at the same time, does it solve an access problem? Does it solve knowledge problem of what robot is best for me? Absolutely. And it does a great job doing that.
Maybe similar to some of the other things we're talking about, right? Maybe this is creating that base upon which it will be built like a couple of years down the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
So back to RigBetel's. What is RigBetel's lab working on now, and how does it change its future, right? What will RigBetel's lab of the future? How will it look different from what it is today?
And I think we've always been on that evolving journey. that has kind of given that edge for us to work on things that you would hear 2 months down the line before the market knows about it, right? So that would be a constant trend for us, irrespective of whatever domain we work into. But at the same time, a massive change that we're looking, to now incorporate in the way we work is we've always been from a very custom solution based approach, which has its own plus and minus. Plus on the lines that you get to work with interesting products every now and then, and minuses from the lines that scalability as a services company is always a challenge. And you can just execute so many projects at the given same time. So we've spent last almost 18, 20 months very meticulously picking projects that guided us through of what kind of products can we build. Because unless we have a product line to support our services, we will end up doing repeated services for the similar set of things every now and then. So to kind of eliminate that repetition notion, we're uh, trying to build a parallel product line that complements our services. At the same time, introduces RigBetel Labs as a brand to a newer market that we may not have tapped before. So that is one primary change. Again, I do not have a lot of details that I can share with you right now because we're in a lot of storing and thinking and making and checking boxes and crossing boxes stage at the moment. But yeah, maybe another year into it, we'd be at the place where we have a standalone product line working at a specific set of things versus compared to a standalone solutions line which works on a different set of problem statements.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, happy to.
Very always happy to speak to industry veterans like yourself.
I'd not call myself that, but I'm a little far from that yet.
No, but again, very thank you for your time. This was very informative for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.